By popular demand, today we're looking again at this card. This is the Maxsun iCraft RTX 3080 that I showed you a couple weeks ago before the end of the year. A lot of people were wondering and asking questions about this one. It was a great deal, and I promise that I'm going to be doing disassembly and repasting of the die and see what else we can improve around the contact between the PCB, the backplate, and kind of in depth looking at the cooler. So today, without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and check that out. Hey guys, welcome back to our How and Says channel. My name is Ivan. Today we're doing disassembly, repasting, and some other modifications of the Maxsun iCraft RTX 3080, which quickly became my personal favorite RTX 3080 that I've had in the last 2 years, surpassing the FE, the EVGA for the Win 3, and some other models that I have, including the Yeston, which the Yeston looks amazing, but the cooler is not the best out there and the thermal performance is not showing anything great. This one is much thicker, as you guys saw in my previous video. This is triple slot card, almost the size of the new generation's 40 series cards because it's so big. We got 90mm fans in the front and it's very beefy, and it out of the box performs very well. So I was a little reluctant about opening it up and try to upgrade things, but the audience demanded. A lot of people wanted to see how the PCB looks like and what else we can improve inside if we maybe repaste. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll the video. I'm gonna open it and go into details. Of course, at the end, we're gonna talk about it in conclusion. So the RTX 3080 by Maxsun, the iCraft, is one of the nicest 3080s that I've seen. And I've seen plenty in the last couple of years. And because the memory is the coolest running on any RTX 3080, I'm not gonna be repadding it, despite the fact that I have all kinds of size pads over here to my side. I wanna see if I can put some pads on the back side between the backplate and the PCB, because there's not any there. What I'm actually gonna do is repaste and see if I can lower the temperature down on the core a little bit and the hotspot, because currently they're running cool, but maybe they can be cooler, who knows. All we need to do is start in the back. You'll see right here. First of all, those of you that are afraid and you think you're gonna avoid your warranty, don't do it. I'm personally not afraid. I really don't care. And in the United States, no companies have the right to cancel your warranty or not obey your warranty claim just because you open it up. And this sticker right here doesn't mean anything for us. It's just advisory. They have to obey the warranty. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove these four first. And for the back plate, we have 2 on the outside and 1, 2, 3 on the inside after we remove the whole cooler. But this whole removing process should be relatively easy. Let me remove these dust covers. Should be relatively easy because only the 4 screws are holding this massive 2.5 to 3 slots cooler they have. And then we're gonna see if we can take this whole thing apart. Now, after removing the 4 initial screws that are holding everything in place, you'll notice there's a couple more that you're gonna have to remove in order for you to disassemble everything. The 2 in the back and these 2 right here, because they're holding not only the cooler but kind of a top metal plate that holds the back plate and the PCB as well. So from here it will be easier to separate everything. So after removing these screws and removing the last 3, we're actually in a IO shield plate. Don't forget these ones, I almost forgot, and the IO shield plate was preventing me from separating it. After that, you have 3 cables. One right here is the cable for the LED RGB triangle kind of logo for the iCraft, and the other ones are for the RGB on the top and the fans as well. So what we can see here, if we look closer on the PCB, very, very familiar design compared to, let's say, the Yeston, because almost entirely the same, minus the color of the PCB. I don't see any other difference. If you go through my older video of the Yeston disassembly, you will see how similar they are. We have similar components here, similar VRMs. Now the thermal pads over here, I think, are slightly better quality because they are providing a much better cooling compared to what the Yeston was doing. And after I did the repadding and repasting, we improved a lot the temperatures. Over here, I'm going to leave these stock ones. They didn't rip off. They're well placed. We have some applied already on the VRMs, not just the memory. We have some for the chokes as well, as you can see. And the memory cooling solution is kind of a part of this metal brace that is contacting with the copper base of the GPU cooling, and is going to this massive fin array, like we said, with the 6 thick heat pipes. Impressive work with this cooler, I have to say, and I really like what they've done. It's providing ample amount of cooling and it's very thick. At the same time, the cooling solution is not obscenely loud. And now I think when I repaste, we're gonna bring the temperatures down a little bit more, and most likely the noise is gonna drop down as well, because the cooler doesn't have to run as much as possible. These 90mm fans don't have to spin as much as they are now. I'm gonna clean this copper base. I'm gonna clean the GPU here as well. I'm just gonna use my MX6 or MX4, whatever I have right here next to me, and we're gonna see how that's gonna improve what's happening behind the PCB and the backplate. So if I go ahead and remove the screws that are holding the backplate, which are not that many, there's only 3 of them, and this is the IO that says iCraft on it. I'm gonna remove that as well to the side. Here is the PCB, nice and clean look of it. Here's the backside. I don't see anything unusual on the soldering job. Again, very similar to what I saw on Yeston. Similar components, similar placement. This is a massive, a very thick aluminum backplate. It would be nice to have some thermal pads. They're gonna be making a contact with the back of the components here, where the VRMs are, where the main chip is, possibly where the memory is, and we'll see how that's gonna improve the temperature. But let me go ahead and start cleaning up this mess over here with some alcohol, and after I clean it, we're gonna look at it again. So after measuring the distance between the PCB and the backside of the backplate, I found out that what you need to place here is 2.5mm, kind of a thick thermal pads. My other smaller ones were not working and not making contacts, but the 2.5mm thermal ride that I have, these actually make a contact with the back of the PCB and with the back of the plate. So this is how it's going to look on the back plate after I placed all my thermal pads. Obviously I haven't peeled the plastic cover on some of them yet, but 2 on the VRMs, all of them on the memory. A couple of components here I just had a leftover, so I put it there just in case. Not that it matters that much. No sense of putting anything over here because this is kind of ventilated. There's a hose right where the backside of the GPU goes, so I really don't have anything to place there, but I think it should be fine. Getting some passive ventilation right there, and after I'm gonna attach the backplate, we're gonna install it and see what kind of temps we're gonna get as well. So after lining up all the thermal pads on the back, I reattach the backplate to the PCB. Don't forget to put your IO shield, because it attaches to these 2 screws as well. Have to slide it between the backplate and the PCB, and then screw those 2. And yeah, this is how it's going to be in the backside. And if we peek here real quick, you'll see how the thermal pad is making contact with the PCB and the backplate. This is again 2.5mm, and hopefully that's going to help us even further lowering the temperatures. Quick look of the copper base of the radiator. As you can see, it's not very smooth, kind of rough actually. It's probably one of the roughest I've seen. So we're gonna have to use a little bit more thermal paste so these little grooves of the copper gets filled in with the thermal paste. It gets better contact. Production date here, I guess, 28th of April 2022. And here is the GPU die, cleaned up and ready to be repasted. Nice and easy. There's some residue left from the old one over some of the components, but that's not a big deal. We can see some of the memory here, which is Micron. The rest of it is covered by the thermal pad, so I'm not going to remove them. I'm going to leave them the way they are. But I don't see anything out of the ordinary here. Let me repaste it, and I'm going to put it back together, and we're going to see some of the test comparisons, and we're going to talk about it at the end in the conclusion. Now, reassembled, everything put together. The card is just like it was before. All the cables are attached for the RGB, for the fans, and there's no gap between the thermal pads and the back plate. We have new thermal paste, which I put MX4 on the GPU, and I'm gonna throw it in the computer now, run some tests, and I'm gonna show it to you guys, see the comparison between the last time I would look at this card, everything stock versus now. with the same room temperature, but changed thermal paste and added back thermal pads for the rest of the components. So yeah, we're gonna talk about in conclusion. All right, conclusion time. And does it worth doing any of that work to improve the temperatures of the iCraft by Maxsun? Well, in my personal opinion, yes, absolutely. You can shave off a couple of degrees, and of course, I did not replace the thermal pads. I'm sure if I used something like this or some other brand, aftermarket thermal pads, I would have dropped a couple more degrees as well. The stock ones are 1 millimeter, so if you are planning to do this kind of manipulation, and if you want to repaste and at the same time repad, might as well get a 1 millimeter thermal pads and place them on. I still use the stock ones. In the back, I placed 2.5 millimeter thermal pads between the PCB and the back plate. That way that temperature is going to be extracted from the PCB backside to the actual metal back plate and dispersed around the case. Now, what the results are showing us, it's kind of expected from my part. We managed to lower down the GPU and the hotspot temperature by 3 to 4 degrees Celsius, which is not bad. I mean, it's not anything mind-blowing like what we have with the HP RTX 3080, when we dropped down 10 degrees across, and I mean, the memory dropped 20 degrees. Here, 3 to 4 degrees on hotspot, 3 to 4 degrees on the GPU, temperature dropped down, which is good. And to begin with, the temperatures were very good. Again, with this beefy cooler they've used on this model, things are great. And now that the temperatures are lower, actually the fans are spinning a little bit less, creating less noise. And I observed another effect where the memory actually temperature increased. And I was kind of expecting that because I saw the same exact thing happening with the HP, same exact thing happening with the Yeston. Because the fans are spinning slower, they're controlled by the temperature of the GPU. So if your GPU is running cooler, they're gonna spin slower, and this is gonna reflect on the temperature of the memory, which is gonna be slightly higher, but still the memory manages to stay under 9 degrees Celsius. And in this particular situation, it increased by 2 degrees. I'm not worried about that at all. Further down the line, I might repad it, put some quality thermal pads, and see if that's gonna affect the temperature that was gonna drop further down below again. But at the moment, I think having a lower temperature on the GPU and having a lower temperature on hotspot is much better and much beneficial, because your clocks are gonna stay higher, boosting higher than normal, and of course you're gonna get more frames. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Hit the thumbs up if you like the video, stay tuned to the channel, subscribe if you're new, check out the link in the description below if you want to support the channel directly. It helps me tremendously to bring you videos like this regularly. I have a couple exciting videos coming very soon. I have a gaming portable monitor that you're gonna enjoy seeing because it's very good. And I built the ultimate Frankenstein PC, which this is gonna be funny and interesting to see. That's pretty much it for now, guys. As always, you have a wonderful day.